All right, good morning, cyber traders. Welcome on back here this Friday, December 9th, to wrap up our week here live inside the Cyber Group room. Great to see Ray and Warren, Michael and Grant, and Alex and Lee, John, Skip, Norman, Ray, Jeff, and all of us otherwise. Just great to see all of us here this morning. Great to have all of us back on social media, Facebook Live or YouTube. You could tell, of course, this is Josh Levitan speaking, tagging in for Fausto this morning. He's actually, if not in the air, he's en route to Florida. I know he has a couple of meetings down there. If not even today, then even for Monday of next week, I'll tag in for him. So with that, there's a lot to talk about. There always is a lot to talk about, even with the market pretty choppy heading into the afternoon like we had. But, there were a bunch of trades that we ended up doing well on from yesterday that I want to talk about. A couple of stocks that did all right for us early this morning in pre-market, but to be honest, for a Friday morning, you're not expecting really much of anything. So had a little bit of a drop early within the market after 8:30, but outside of that, not a whole lot of traction on a few different trades. So we'll go over what worked for us, what did not, and then we'll scan through. But at least to start with what's on the screen here for right now, the CLRO, one that at least for right now has started to work out off the support from $1.10. It broke out from just there and tried to make a nice squeeze, but as you could see, now beginning to make that pullback. This is like a stock that was below $1 before this morning. We normally don't trade these like real cheapy stocks like this, and we'll get to one in a moment that will actually ran really well. But CLRO, at least here for the meantime, I don't know if there's news that came out on this company. Either way, the thing that I look at is the fact that this thing ran up so much just over the last month straight, from 50 cents all the way up to 85 just from yesterday. Now a pop up much higher to $1.23. This thing's moved up too much too fast, I think. So I'm going to come back to this at the end. It could be a good stock to put on our watch list if there's still strength by the end of the meeting. But I want to see if there's anything looking a lot better, anything that's just a better opportunity in my eye. All right, so again, we'll start with putting this on our side list. Now, what I want to do, though, is just jump back to yesterday because, well, there we go. I had no idea this was popping, folks. I was just turning back to this, honestly, for the first time in the last 20 minutes. I didn't look at this for the last 20 minutes, so perfect timing. PHVS making another big move up once again today, albeit still down 5 to 6% from yesterday's close. This thing blew the roof off early in the morning and ended up just making this huge parabolic run. I was not expecting to see this just continue the way it did after 12 o'clock. Now, there was some news that came out on this company that was in relation to phase 2 trial studies meeting their primary and secondary endpoints. Listen, if you're a member here inside the live trading room, you don't want to hold your breath and just buy the news and that's it. Again, we'll get to a stock this morning that did not work out for us, right, and off of news. But, when they meet their primary and secondary endpoints, and it's phase 2, and then certainly one more, phase 3, that's just the most significant phase within their trials test studies to go through before FDA approval. Phase 2 is pretty good still, though. So it led to a nice pop early in the morning. But, man, as soon as this ended up breaking above resistance off of 450, 460, ended up just exploding, got halted. And the more it gets halted going up, you'd wonder, when is it going to begin to pull back, crash back down? And, yeah, it shook back down a bit, but this just kept giving. Made higher lows, built up this beautiful Fausto flag. You could probably see it even better on a 5 or 15-minute chart there, but nevertheless led to the next pop, topped off just right around $12, a little bit above, and then eventually kind of just drifted off into the close. But yeah, now another big move up again this morning. So it's hard to not put this on our watch list, at least for right now, the PHVS, especially with this move here. So for right now, we'll do that. Just be wary of it, though. Hey, just before in the other ones, the CLRO, you could say the same on this thing. This thing moved up way too much, way too fast from yesterday. So I wasn't expecting this pop. But for right now, we'll at least put this on our main list. All right. Actually, for a Friday, I'm on the stick for a long time today, so I got to take a nice little water break there. Now, with that, there was a couple of other trades that we ended up doing well on from yesterday, too. The EXPR stock, Express, like a meme stock back in the day, back from early last year in 2021. It had a nice squeeze up early in pre-market. Then from there, just kind of dumped off after the open, didn't it? Ended up just kind of making lower highs. But where we caught this trade, we ended up looking for support roughly off 161, 162. And for the most part, it ended up holding that pretty nicely. But based off C2 strategy, based off what we teach in class, especially phase 1, phase 2, when it breaks through the big level on the way up, right? So a couple of false opportunities there, but right before noon, it re-broke through that level, and it was smooth sailing since. Honestly, to the point where I was calling out my home run target on this trade was roughly off 191 to 195. I can't copy and paste that in the chat board. That's from yesterday's log. I would need to do a little digging for that, but I was looking for that and nailed it perfectly. Doesn't always, cut out that way, right? But this was on a smooth, steady trend, and at that topped off perfectly at our target, and then from there just kind of pulled back again. So if it was shortable, if this was easy to borrow, then we'd flip the script and short it on the way down. But it was hard to borrow on TradeStation. At least the run was over from there. Down 6% this morning. So it's not looking too good here for the Open Express. I put it on my side list, but I have no real interest in this trade now at this point. All right, we have two more from yesterday, and then we'll just jump right through the percent gainers and losers list. So SMMT, and we talked about this even just on another stock that we'll go through next, but again, this pushed up the last 3 days in a row. So even if you think, oh, it's moved up too much, it should dump off. If it's volatile enough, if it's trading good volume in pre-market, technically there is still an opportunity, right? So with saying that, SMMT, another huge move yesterday morning, ended up popping shortly after 9:30, ended up getting halted a couple of times on the way up, similar to the other one, ended up topping off just around that 450 level. Just, man, what a move from just from Tuesday this week, from basically $1 all the way up towards 450 and above. So hey, we tend to catch these runners on a day-to-day basis here, but to have it literally the same stock for 3 days in a row, you don't get that too often, honestly. So, this was a really nice gift to have. Personally, I did pretty well on this stock back from Wednesday into Thursday yesterday. So I missed out on it initially Tuesday, but it was a nice stock in our phase 3 class as I was trading for Fausto then, and then just yesterday morning caught a good chunk of it. Again, for the Open, it's trading some good volume. Order book will fill in a lot more after 9:30. It's not, it hasn't completely tanked, right? It's actually up 0.83% from yesterday's close. So it's a lot better of a sideless stock, at least this, compared to that EXPR. So I'm not going to put this on the main list just yet, but maybe after 9:30 we'll reconsider. All right, last one, Tor. So another one just from the last few days, the last week and a half, I'd say really has made a nonstop push up on the daily chart, up and above $1. Yesterday topped off at 239, as you could see, breaking above that this morning. Just broke above 250 a moment ago. And that's where you ask, like, hey, this stock has moved up so much the last few days. When is it going to pull back? All right, well, if it breaks through the level and there's some good buying coming in, and if it holds above the level at least, then there's a chance. So for right now, it's doing just that. But for anyone that was in this trade just earlier, as we had called it out, you would want to see this make a bigger pop very soon. Normally we're out of trades in pre-market around 9:15 Eastern, 9:10, 9:15. So, it's pushing up. It's doing its job. Got a 15K iceberg on the bid at 250. That also helps. But, you don't necessarily want to hold this one going into the Open. That's where you got to wonder, are we going to see the sell-off right away? Right? Is this going to tank right away? And that's it, like instantly. So for right now, hey, I'll put this on our main list with that PHVS stock. Just be a little careful, though, going into the Open on it. All right, so with that, let's go from top to bottom now. Ooh, some good buying just came in on that Tor trade just there. The AMAM, this is the cheapie I was referring to that just nonstop is pushing up just a moment ago. It broke below the trend line, and then from that point just held pretty nicely off of like $1 or 105, maybe you could say. From that point, pushing back up here. It's hard to not put this stock on our watch list just given how it looks, right? I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't put this on our watch list. It's got a liquid order book. I harp on that more than anything. Fausto does as well, of course. But, it's pretty inexpensive, so it's right within everyone's price range. Just don't get caught slipping. The stock is up already 183%. For a stock that's up that much going into the Open, just like I said on Tor, you're going to expect to see a little sell-off prior to 9:30. So, if you're in this trade already, be very careful. You cannot set stops, like real stops in pre-market. So just make sure that if this ends up pulling back a little bit here coming up, get out ahead of time. You could always look to get back in on the trade later on. All right, so with that, AMAM, we'll at least tag on our list. All right, so one that did not work out for us this morning, at least yet. BXRX, some news that came out with like phase 2. They didn't meet primary endpoints or secondary endpoints like the other one did. The news that came out on it was that they just initiated coverage on it or initiated their study. So they started it. So a little pop to begin, right? Early in pre-market. Just didn't really make that squeeze up. So if there's one thing in relation to news, at least I can think about, it's like, hey, if they meet their primary, secondary endpoints, or even just later on go up to phase 3, that's a lot better than like just beginning a study. So could it pump up higher? Of course. But, hey, it ended up making lower highs going into 8 o'clock. Lower highs, often you're going to see a break of support, lower low. So it ended up snapping these local lows and pulled back a lot. So that's where you got to be careful on it. So yeah, BXRX, I'll still put this on our list just given, hey, it ended up trading a lot of volume this morning. Hopefully you can build up some support later on after the open. The trend off the highs is clearly downwards. So, don't try and catch the falling knife on this. Maybe it drops as low as $5, another like 92 cents from here, tests 5, and then could bounce. That's just a loose thought. But yeah, I mean, for right now, I'll still put this on our radar, on our watch list. All right, CLRO, I'm going to come back to at the very end. I don't know how it looks right now since we last looked at it, but I want to just keep going through. The MRIN stock, MRIN, we are pretty familiar with this trade. We did really well on this stock back in July of last year. And this was a real run day over day over day and, a couple in between, pullbacks, but it ended up making a huge squeeze for us back then. So we're very familiar with this stock. And for right now, is kind of returned back to being like a stagnant level 1 trade. It's not really making that big move just yet. So, hey, there's time. Hopefully this can make a bit better pop after the open. I think some news came out between MRIN Software and Walmart with their Walmart Connect Partners program. But with that, at least, there was news out on MRIN with Amazon, I think, last year. That may have led to that pop, if I'm not mistaken. So, hey, this could lead to another similar squeeze. I'm not expecting 25, let alone 10, let alone 5. But if this can make a fraction of the type of run it made for us back last year, I'll take it. And it's already up 35%, but you know what I mean. There's always a chance it can break higher later on, holding over 150 and perhaps making a higher low off the VWAP afterwards. But yeah, the MRIN trade I'll put back on our list here. It was on our pre-market watch list. All right, what else we got here, folks? What else we got? ACLX. Eesh, this thing doesn't. Not really the best looker there. We'll keep going. I mean, I guess you could say the same on NRBO. This stock was also on our list early, but it was trending down even going into 8 o'clock. That's where even I, just putting this on our list, I assume that this isn't ready to make its big push yet with it trending down into 8 o'clock. And we teach you that throughout class. So here now, it's building a better support off the 2 level, off 190, at least you could see there. But, look for that off of 2, at least going into the open. Similar with the MRIN, I'll put this back on our list. Just, overall activity in pre-market. I didn't even check if there's news on this stock. Let me just actually double check on that. Really quick, just jumping on Benzinga Pro, great software platform, I should say otherwise. So some news came out like in relation to just coverage on it, just a firm initiated coverage on it back from earlier this week on Wednesday, but that's all I got. So for right now, hey, it's making a nice squeeze back up. Definitely a good bounce off 2 now and hopefully off the VWAP here at 205. And Tor already on our watch list, and then we keep going. So DocuSign, a little expensive, but I'll still take a look at it if it was trending the other way. At this point, I'd be more inclined to put it on our watch list, but for right now, we'll pass. ZH, Chinese stock. I think a lot of the China stocks gapped up again overnight, but all kind of flat. So this one definitely pretty sideways for right now. Forge, not much of an order book showing there. And that leads me to Chuck's Boyle trade. Chuck got in and out on Boyle in pre-market from 32.59. Got like $1.50 on his trade, basically, loosely speaking. He got out at 33.96. So the loose math on that, very nice trade from Chuck. But with that in mind, hey, natural gas ETF, this moves inversely to cold, which we're really familiar with. We're a lot more familiar with cold. But hey, if you do well on the natural gas ETFs altogether, or if you have Bookmap level 4, then I'd really suggest for you to follow them. If anything, at least I'll be more inclined to put, although we'll likely call out Boyle too, Chuck, the UNG. UNG moves the same way as Boyle. It's just cheaper. That's all. So, UNG and cold, I'll put both on our watch list, and I'm referring to Boyle with that in mind. All right. We don't really trade the ETFs often. So as a new student here, please take our advice. And I know that I'm not Fausto, but Fausto would be the first one to say it here. Do not trade an ETF unless if you have level 4, because otherwise it makes it really difficult to trade trying to follow level 3. You're going to do much better looking for iceberg orders on a publicly traded stock. That could be MRIN, it could be Tor, it could be the PHVS, even that crazy thing. But otherwise though, if you got level 4, then consider it. If you do well on them, obviously you'll put them on your main list. But yeah, just otherwise, that's my thoughts on them. Billy, another Chinese stock that we're really familiar with. This one's done us really well over the last week and a half. I personally have become pretty familiar with this thing. I wish I traded it back on Wednesday this week or Wednesday this week, when it ended up making this big pop from 20, sub 20. I didn't prep my chart then. Billy right now, at least heading into the open, dropping off after the gap up. So, for right now, I'll keep it on our side list. You could say the same thing on the XPEV. You could say the same thing on the NEO trade, and I even charted NEO prior to the market opening up. Even prior to 8:30, I ended up charting NEO early. So, that's my personal decision, but that doesn't mean that this is going to make a great move. I just wanted to follow something just for my personal side list. So altogether, the China stocks, will pass on them for right now. If they end up making a strong move just shortly after the open, then I'll cycle through my book map. We'll call them out appropriately. All right. All right. And that even includes IQ, which IQ we put on our pre-market watch list. Look at it now. So this one was actually up 6 or 5 or 6%, something like that early. It was trending up well prior to 8 o'clock. I thought this had great ability to squeeze up higher. Ran up pretty nicely here just from the end of November into this month, but had a big sharp pullback. So it built that a little, local support. Popped up yesterday. I was hoping to see more this morning, but obviously didn't get it. So, this one as well. We'll pass on this. We'll put this on our side list at least after the open. All right, current time 9:19 right now. I want to make sure all of our students have enough time to prep up, make sure they get their last licks of prep in before the market opens. So, I see a bunch of crap that's hard to borrow on the loser side, except, well, we got a couple, but except, at least for my platform, TradeStation, Carvana, CVNA. I regret not following this as much as I should have yesterday. I thought it was going to be a lot slower of a trade yesterday, just because the day before it was all over the map, and that's not normal for a stock that is like $4 Carvana. Take a look at SoFi, take a look at NEO back when it was a $3, $4, $5 stock. AMD, they just become a lot more liquid, a lot more slower moving. So off of Wednesday's move, I didn't think it was going to move as well. It did. It ended up dropping off at first, but then made a really sharp dead cat bounce. So this morning, I also prepped up Carvana, NEO and Carvana. Those are my main two going into the open. For Matt, for Roger as well, that private chatted me early this morning asking what I'm looking at. You didn't know I was doing the meeting, of course, right? But, there you go. NEO and Carvana, those two mainly I'm watching. Carvana, though, I'm going to put on our main watch list. This one definitely looks a lot more active. It's down over 7% so far. Perhaps it could be another short day if it ends up breaking back below that 450 level. That's what I was typing in the chat board earlier. So, yeah, Carvana, I just think that's a better trade for a lot of us here altogether going into the open. And then if it ends up holding 450, higher lows off the VWAP there, then there's a chance maybe a dead cat bounces again, right? Lee LI. This one's actually, it's not down over 5%, but downtrend this morning. This one's easy to borrow, at least. Could be a good short, good sideless stock. I know a few of us like following Lee. Coinbase dropping back down again. Not really doing a whole lot, though, for a $41 stock. Very rugged, staticky move. So, yeah, not too particular about that. Folks, we're also below 5%. So if there's anything else that you see, just type it in the chat board. Just let me know. For Deb asking just what's the link for level 4, the program at least. Rich will send you a private message as he just wrote you there. We'll just give you the link. We'll talk to you more about that at least just in a private chat. All right, so for all of us on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube, once more, I'm tagging in for Fausto this morning, at least, of course, and I think perhaps for Monday as well. So, hey, if you have any other questions, just feel more than free to send over a quick email, josh@c2trading.com. I always like to post my email here at the streams, especially in the afternoon when I always host them. But otherwise, if you're not joining us this afternoon, coming up later on today, enjoy the weekend. With that in mind, folks, opening bell coming up just in about 8 or 7 minutes, so I look forward to it. I'll type and tweet out the list here in just a second, folks. So for Deb and Brian, Grant, Sid, and all of us just here otherwise, I look forward to speaking to you coming up. Take care.
Become a Cyber Group member today. Just click the link below and receive all these amazing products and a world of knowledge for just $9. Do it today.